going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we are doing a fun video that actually the owner of the website reached out to me and asked me to review the website. So I want to be upfront about that because I will tell you guys, he did talk to me. We did go through it. We have discussed it. This isn't the first time I'm seeing the site, so my reactions will be honest. As you guys know, I'm very honest. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of the site, but it's up to you guys if you guys want to use the site or not. What is the site? First off, it's defbox.io. So the first thing about this is, before you get crazy and go over to the site, I'll let you know, if you use the code /StuffY24, you will get 50% off. I'm only telling you that so that you don't go buy it and pay full price. Get 50% off. I don't really care if it doesn't help me out that much. The reason I'm showing you that is that if someone just watches the video for a minute and then goes, oh, I want to check it out, they don't just go purchase the $20 a month or whatever it is. But anyway, so what is this site? The site is a defensive oriented lab site. It's very similar to Try Hack Me, things like that, except for it's all defense oriented. It's for analysts. It's for people that are looking at log ingestion. It's for people that are used to elk stack, things like that. So it's actually a really, really cool concept, because when you do things like Try Hack Me and Hack the Box and stuff, it's one machine, right? It's typically just one little machine. And what I mean by that is, you log in, there may be some logs on the machine you review or whatever, if there's a defensive side one, and then that's it. Like, you don't actually interact with the sim. You don't actually interact with any log ingestion, or you don't see the attacks happen or anything. You're reviewing old logs. This is different. This is the way it's set up. It is actually really cool. It will run a live attack, and it's your job as the defender to prevent it, detect it, whatever the case is. You can do it however you want. I will be honest with you guys, the site is clunky. The site has some issues, and I'm going to talk about them. We're going to discuss it, but we're going to go through one of these labs. So we're going to go through this vulnerable SSH lab. When I say it's clunky, what I mean is, you log in, this is what you see. If this was the first thing I saw, I would have no idea what to do. The only reason I know what to do is because I worked with the owner and he explained to me how to do it. He showed me, right? Otherwise, I would have probably got off the site in about 10 minutes because I would have been frustrated and been like, this isn't for me. But as I dive deeper into it, I think it's got a lot of value, and it's just, the site's new, so it has a lot of growth opportunity, right? So as we look at it, you can see we have labs, scoreboard, myself, the plans, things like that. But the labs are really all I care about. The scoreboard is okay, whatever, but I don't really care. The labs are what I care about. So we're going to view this vulnerable SSH. So what this is, and they kind of walk you through it, it's kind of neat. I'm going to start it now because it does take time to start up. I'm going to tell you guys that now. It takes 5, 6, 7 minutes to start these labs, and I understand why once you dive deeper into it. So you can see they go through the life cycle of the attack. Now, the reason I'm going to walk you through all of this is because if you just click through here, you would never really know what to do. I only know what to do, like I said, because he showed me. So that's one of my first feedbacks, is the site needs some sort of guidance. There is no guidance. It's like playing, what's the game that's extremely, Dark Souls, with never playing before, no tutorial, nothing, just hopping in. You have no idea what you're doing here, and it's not portrayed properly. So you can see that's the first thing, is I think there needs to be some sort of guidance. I think the UI could use some work. I think it's very clunky. It's kind of bulky. There's not really a whole lot there, I guess. And then I think, like, instead of just saying life cycle, maybe actually have a description of what you're talking about. Because if you're new to this world, you don't know what the life cycle is, right? And what they're saying is, he's saying this is the life cycle of the attack. So we're going to deploy it. This is the life cycle of the lab. We're going to deploy it. So it says here, we are creating virtual machines and installing software. So what they're doing is they're creating a virtual machine that the attack's going to take place on. And then they're standing up an elk stack where they're actually collecting these logs. And you can actually go through and look at the logs and watch the attack happen and detect it, right? So it's actually pretty neat. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a really neat concept. I think it needs flushed out. Do I think it's worth $10? Because that's, I think with 50% off, it's $10. Yeah, I definitely think it's worth $10. It's worth $10 just to have someone stand up the stack for you and go through the logs. That's worth $10 to me. So you go through here. We deployed it. You see it's deploying, and you see it's in this phase. It shows you which phase it's in, which I really like. You can't see, but there's another phase: hack, redeploy, investigate, all that. So I really like that it shows you what phase you're in. Right now we're in the deploy phase, right? We're going to take a look into the stack, right? Now, first thing we're going to do is, and you can see there's a little information here, but not really much. It's kind of like a root to boot where they don't give you any, or boot to root, excuse me, where they don't give you any guidance. The problem is there's no guidance on the site at all. So the whole site is a figure it out type of thing. And I'm not a fan of that type of learning. I'm a fan of that type of learning if I'm troubleshooting something, but just to get me to the problem, if I have to troubleshoot just to get to the problem, I don't really think that's beneficial. It doesn't help anybody. What I'm saying is it doesn't help anybody to go through here and spend an hour trying to figure out how to use the site. That doesn't help anybody learn. So I think it could be much, 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 much more intuitive. But the nice thing is here, they stand up this elk stack, right? And you go here, and this is what takes a little while to start, but you see it gives you a temporary username and password. Let's see. Okay, so the username is Elastic, and the temporary password is here. Okay, so here's where it also gets a little bit confusing. So see, this says highlights. So as you scroll down, you get the information. This will populate as you get the box stood up. You see now it's under protect. Now you're in the protect phase, meaning the attack hasn't happened. You can see I can click attack, but the attack has not happened yet. So we don't have to do anything yet. So the attack hasn't happened. We're now in the stage of like what a normal analyst is in, right? A normal analyst has a SIM and they're trying to protect things, but they are anticipating attacks, right? Well, this one, you're going to anticipate what kind of attack it happens. Now, you can see it says here, find highlights. When you feel familiar with the lab, click the button. I like that a lot. I like that when you're familiar, when you figured out how to use everything, if you've never used Elastic, definitely go through and use it, mess with it before you start this, because otherwise you're going to be like, what's going on? But this is a very nice way to have all the logs ingested. You can look at the timelines. You can figure everything out, right? You got an hour here. So take a look at the elk. Take a look into elk. Don't forget to set up the index patterns. Okay. So this is saying these are things that you can do, not everything you can do. So like I said, the value in this is not necessarily in their labs. It's in the fact that I can click a button and I have actual generated logs that I can go through, and then I can start to watch the logs, right? That's the value. The value is not so much in following their exact path, I guess. But anyway, so here's the information. You have your SIM here. You got your Elastic set up. Now here's your highlights. This is your flags, okay? This is another nitpicky thing, but I think this is a terrible way of emphasizing this, portraying it, whatever you want to say. It's not really good. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, if I was just reading through this, okay. By the time I got to highlights, I'm already a little bit confused because, okay, so it's sitting here. I got to protect it. So I'm going to go here and start protecting. I don't even see the highlights. I don't think they should be called highlights. Just call them flags because that's what everyone's familiar with. But the other thing is put them at the top and just have a section where, hey, this is what you're looking for, so that I know what the goal is here before I get all the way down here and start doing stuff. So it says here there are points of interest. It could be endpoints, interesting files, environmental variables. They give you a sneak peek of what's inside the lab. Finding them will help you get to know the lab and defend it. They're just flags. Don't overcomplicate this. They want you to tell them, in this case, I already answered it, but what is the file with misconfigured SSH? And that's what it is right there. Etsy, SSH config. Now that's the SSH config file. If you just know the SSH config file or find it, right, you can put that in there. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Now it's asking for the username. And this kind of gives you a hint as to what the lab occurred or is going to occur. User that was brute forced. So what user was brute forced, right? Now, you can see here, they have an SSH terminal. If I wanted to, I could go in and actually SSH into the terminal. This is where no more value adds, because when I do that, guess what? These logs are going to start collecting that information. So I can actually generate my own attack here if I wanted to, or just simulate an attacker on a machine running commands. Am I going to find them here, right? In Elastic. That's where the value is. The value for me is way more than simply this. But we are going to walk through this lab so you can see the full thing. But every single one of these machines is kind of built like this. And you can see you can add highlights if you wanted to, but every single machine is like this. It's not very intuitive, so that's why I'm going to walk you through it. So we deployed it. Now we're in the protect phase. Okay. Now the hack has not happened. We have to click up here and click attack for that to happen. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through. One sec. I want to check. I want to make sure 100% I get you guys the correct link, or not link, but code for for the thing. Yeah, it looks like you just use discount code Stuffy24. So that's it. I want to make sure I got that because I didn't want to tell you guys to use the discount code and then it's actually like a defbox.io/Stuffy24, but no, use the discount code Stuffy24. Okay, so we're protecting it now. This part, you can do whatever you want here. You get more points if you stop the attack early. I like that a lot. So you'll see once the attack occurs, here's the timeline, and it sees how fast you detect it. So if I already am familiar with Elastic, I can put a rule in place that stops this attack early, right? That's another piece right here that we'll get to, but we're going to follow it exactly how they have it, right? So here, we haven't started the attack yet. When we're familiar, we'll do the thing. Now, we will go through here, and the first thing I would do is I would look for the logs that I'm going to need for this brute force attack, because they're telling me, hey, someone's going to get brute forced based on the highlights that I needed, right? So when I'm looking for this highlights, I need to find where am I going to be looking, right? What logs do I need to find? Well, the first thing is, if you look, there's audit beat and there's file beat. These are the two logs that are being imported, right? Audit beat is what you're going to collect from the operating system, and then file beat is what's being parsed from files, right? So contains information that basically is at a higher level. You can find SSH logs in both of them if you want, right? But which one do we want to look for to actually find them? And that's what we need to find. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to look through these and find, okay, which attack, and we're on audit beat right now. So that's what we're going to stick with for now. Which logs do we need to find people logging into? Because if we don't know where the login files are, it doesn't really help us, right? Well, the nice thing is we can actually just go through and look for authentication logs. Whoops. And what we'll have to do is we'll have to actually say event category. So you can see we have to just pick category. What category? You click plus, and there's all these different ones. We want the authentication. We're going to add that. That's what we want to see. And we could see we've got some records. Count 17. Let's look. Okay. Dismiss the tour. Okay, so excuse me. So it looks like here, if we'll full screen this real quick. Agent ID, root account. So the root account logged in there. Okay. Not audit beat. Okay. So it looks like regular logs, right? I don't see root account. I don't really see anyone crazy logging in. But this is probably where we're going to look, right? Because we want to find what account or what's happening. Now, keep in mind, this timeline is now a snapshot, meaning it's stuck, right? If you've never used Elastic or any SIM, this is now a query that is stuck there. What I mean by that is if I start the attack, which I'm going to do now, because attack does take a couple minutes, right? So now I click here, it's going to start the attack. Well, we see here that 9 record logins, 2 records there, 3 records there, nothing crazy, right? And we're just in simply the authentication logs. Okay, well, let's refresh this. And we'll keep refreshing it, but we want to change the time. We'll just say last 15 minutes. Well, I know the nice thing about this is I don't have to do anything yet, because I know if you go down here and look at the timeline, no attack has occurred yet. How do I know that? Because it'll actually populate red dots showing attacks. And that's what we'll do. We'll show that the red dots have not occurred yet. When the red dots actually start occurring, I'll start looking through the logs and find them. So this is actually super useful once you know how to use it. The problem is trying to figure out what they're looking for, what's going on. The other thing is you wouldn't even know that this is actually a SSH brute force attack unless you actually waited till either the attack happened, because I think it tells you on the timeline, or if you went to the highlight, right? It's labeled as vulnerable SSH, but it's not telling us what attack's happening. I'm not saying, I understand that part of the appeal is to find the attacks, right? To not necessarily know. But the reality is, if I'm trying to help my analysts, I don't want to waste a lot of their time by making them spend 7-8 hours trying to figure out what attack is occurring. If I can just say, hey, an SSH brute force attack is occurring, can you find it? Right? Because then they know where to look. It saves a lot of time. So that's kind of, I think that should be implemented as well. There could be harder sections as you get to the later labs where it's like attacks are occurring, can you find it type of thing? Can you set up alerts, that type of stuff? But to just do on basic labs, I don't think it's necessary. So this is just my honest feedback. I think the price point for this is actually very good. I think $20 is fair, especially since you're literally getting a sim. You're getting actual attacks that occur. They're adding new attacks. You can see now we have two attacks that occurred. So now we can say last 15 minutes. We go through here. And if you look, okay, now we got 21 people logging in. 17, 17, 17, 21. That's not normal, right? We didn't see that before. So let's look. Let's see. We got PAM authentication. Let's expand this bad boy. Okay, and it was an account called Keaton. Okay, an account Keaton. Okay, Keaton. Okay, so are all of these Keaton? I think they probably are. There's Keaton, 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 Keaton. So we can see the brute force attack occurring. So right off the bat, that would be our highlight, right? The first highlight we did was the vulnerable configuration file, which is just your SSH config. And then you have right here, the name was Keaton. Perfect. So now we figured it out, right? So now we'll leave this be. The attack's happening. Can you see what's happening? We added the thing. Now it says investigate. Find an attack in the logs. Create a rule to prevent this, right? So this is where, again, they have very little guidance. So again, I don't recommend you necessarily follow them exactly. Just use it to play with the sim for now. And when they actually start putting guidance in here, but you can see here, they say here post request, but they're not giving you any context. The other thing is I think this VM should be moved because it almost looks like it's a extension of this post request. But anyway, okay, sorry about that. Welcome back. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go to, because now we're in the next stage. So the attack is occurring. We already identified who the user was. We saw Keaton logging in over and over and over. The reason it's still occurring is because they're going to show that he actually does eventually get in. Now you can stop it. So what we're going to do is we go over here. We go right here. We're going to go down to security. We're going to go to manage. We're going to click rules because we want to put a rule in place to stop this attack, right? We're going to create our own rule. We'll say custom query. We want the threshold because we want, if you log in more than, whatever times, if you try, stop that, right? But in this case, they don't really give you information on it. But instead of stopping it to get your points, you have to send the alert to this post request to get your points. They don't really tell you that, which again I think is very bad. I think their intuitiveness of the site is very poor, but the actual what the site can do is very cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say here we want threshold, right? And what filter are we gonna use here? So what we're gonna actually do now is we're actually gonna say, okay, we want our log file path, right? Our log file path, and you can use either any of the alerts that you found, right? We're going to just use the log file path, and if you know how to use the basic queries, this is all you're doing is you're putting a basic query in, and we're saying, hey, we want var, and the reason I'm using the var logs is because this is where the authentication logs exist. You would find that if you went into the file beat instead of the audit beat. and we're going to say log file path var log auth, right? And we're going to say and this is where you'll have to learn how to use Elastic. That's the point, right? And so we're going to say and the message, because we want the message, right, is equal to, and we're going to put wildcards here. You don't have to put wildcards, but the wildcard will make it so that if anything around it also alerts. So we're going to say failed password. Now, go through your logs and look at the actual logs that we were just looking at and look for the exact wording. But we're going to put and failed password, right? Okay. So that's what will alert. When they start getting those alerts, if it reaches a certain threshold, this threshold's at 200, I'm not going to wait for someone to try to log in 200 times, right? The reality is this is if 200 people fail, right? This isn't dedicated to one user. This is if they see 200 failed authentication attempts. I'm just going to do 10, right? Because if you look, it'll ask us here how often they want us to check this. And I don't care about the risk score, but we'll put this as SSH detection. SSH detection. And that's fine. Now you can see they'll run this every 5 minutes. So if it's 10 attempts in 5 minutes, 10 fails in 5 minutes, well, this will depend on your company, right? If your company has 10,000 employees, 10 fails in 5 minutes is not that unreasonable. But if your company has 100 employees, what's the chance that 10% of them all fail logging in the same 5 minutes? Not super great, right? So that might be, so you have to fine tune your rules. That's based on your company. Here, we know that there was only, we saw before, I think it was 7 logins at a time. And then all of a sudden we were seeing 21 fails, blah, blah. So 10's good. So we'll lower this to every minute because I know this is an attack, right? That's going to happen. So we say, okay, now here's where they don't tell you at all, and I don't agree with this, but this is where they kind of expect you to have a little bit of Elastic knowledge, but you're going to send a webhook. What this is I'm going to send the alert to here, right? I'm going to create this connector, connector name, SSH, Defbox, doesn't really matter. We're going to use a post request, and we're sending it to this right here, this post request API, right? I'm going to turn authentication off. I don't want it to have to authenticate. We save it. We're going to create and enable. The body will say SSH brute force attempt. That's what we want it to send. So now we create and enable the rule. So now all we did there was create a rule, and that rule is now going to say, hey, when they actually attack, when they do that, if you see 10 failed SSH attempts, alert me. Now, instead of sending the alert to us, we sent it to Defbox so we could get points for it, right? So now when we say, okay, click on the redeploy button to recreate the lab to see if your rule's working, because it tells you, create a rule. We're going to recreate it. Oh, no. I clicked recreate, not redeploy. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't completely redeploy. Okay, no, it looks like the stack's still staying the same. Now we're just waiting for the virtual machines, but it's not going to. So now we're starting all the way back here, which is interesting because it actually, you never actually will get to the redeploy or the destroy section because once you click redeploy, it goes all the way back here. 206, 569. Okay, so it looks like the stack stays the same. But now we just wait for this to come up. So it's really cool that you can create rules in here and things like that, because that's something that everybody on the defensive side should know. Everybody. So this site is very cool that it's dedicated specifically to these labs, and that shows that the SIM is ingesting logs from the VM. That's where you're getting the logs from. You can query the SIM to find the logs from the VM, right? And et cetera, et cetera. It shows that. The problem is the intuitiveness. There's no teaching. There's no learning. This is just simply figure it out. And I don't like that aspect of it, because the value in this site, I don't think they've quite figured out that the value isn't, the value's in these labs, right? But the value isn't there if you don't show them why, right? There's no why here. And that's where I think, excuse me, I think if you guys Oh man, trying to get over the sickness. But I think if you guys use the site, you will learn a ton, but not necessarily because you're sitting here reading their stuff and going through the phases. I think you'll learn a ton because it'll force you to go learn how to use Kibana rules, how to use Elastic, how to use Elk Stack. It'll teach you you'll have to research it. You'll have to figure it out yourself, right? So the scoreboard is also kind of neat because it shows you. The other thing I do like that they have is these achievements. So I found all the highlights for the vulnerable SSH lab. The threat hunter senior, I detected it within 1 minute, which we will do here in a second anyway. Detected attack within 5, then 10 minutes, and then I completed the SSH lab. So I like that. The only thing I don't like also is this right here. It says my number of points for the lab, and it's not showing any. Average score for all users, my attack detection time, nothing, average time. So all of that I don't understand because I've completed this lab and it literally nothing's happened. So okay, so we're back in the protect phase, so we'll hit attack again, right? That's also another gripe I have is that when you hit redeploy or recreate, it actually, and maybe I just needed to click attack again. I'm not sure, but it says hit the redeploy button, which there is no redeploy button. So little things like that shouldn't be there, right? It should say hit the attack button again, whatever. But we hit the recreate, it recreated. We'll get back here, and then you'll see while the attack occurs, once it starts to occur, you'll see a different dot on there. You'll see a yellow dot, and that's us detecting it. That means the rule came in, so we would have detected this early. Now you can actually get even more creative, and you can create real rules that when detected, it does something, right? So if we go to rules, if we're still, this is our one rule. I'm going to edit it, but I'm not actually going to do anything. We go to actions. This is our one action. We could have this actually integrate directly with something, right? We could have it integrate and like the web hook, we could send a post request to something that acts on it. We could have an automated workflow that says, hey, when you get this message, automatically do this, right? So you could really automate this stuff, and if you had other tools to automatically block the user's IP or whatever the case is. But just having the alerting is really nice. So you can see as the attack's going to occur, if I didn't already have these achievements, I would get this achievement as it occurs, but the attack should be going right now. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so we're in the hack, and then, okay, so then it goes to investigate, then it goes to redeploy, then back. So you never actually will get on this category here, you'll never get to redeploy and destroy because every time you click redeploy, it goes back to deploy. So I'm not really sure why they have those there, but all right, let's look for these attacks. Let's wait for them to happen so you can see them real time. But I do think the value is here for $10. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I think it's worth trying for $10. I don't think in its current state that the value in itself is from their labs. I think it's from you being able to stand it up, mess around with it, and not have to go stand up your own Elastic, not have to go stand up your own Kibana, not have to go stand up your own Elk Stack, any of that stuff. You can just stand this up, go mess with the logs. The value is you can go in the SSH terminal, start running commands that you see on MITRE ATT&CK Framework or any of that stuff, and watch the alert or watch the logs. Go look for the logs of where you know those logs will exist, and then start creating rules and stuff to detect real attacks. That's what I think the value is, because you can SSH into the machine if you have the paid subscription. Now, if you guys don't want to pay for the subscription, they do have a free version. See right there, you can see multiple detects and attacks. So here, if you look, this says lab created. The initial access was at 1544. Okay, they started the brute force at 1544.34, and within 45 seconds, we detected it. So that's pretty good, right? That's pretty fast. So that means they let us know, we detected it, boom, we're in good shape. We would have prevented this attack. Now, the key is to eventually get to a point where you're right here, you're detecting the attack. What I mean by that is you go to deploy, you go in here, and you try and protect yourself before it ever gets here. meaning you don't wait for the attack to happen and then go back and change it, right? You want to be proactively changing it. So this is a really, really cool site. Again, use code Stuffy24 for it. If you guys want, you'll get 50% off. It's a really, really cool site. I recommend it. I can't recommend it enough, except it just needs work. It's very new. It needs some work. The UI is not good. There's no intuitiveness, but the content's there. If you can weed through and get to the content, it's super useful. But man, is it rough to try and weed through. It took me, I'm going to be honest with you, like an hour to like get through and be like, okay, so this does that and this does, like, it really shouldn't be difficult. It should be pretty intuitive. It should be just walk you right through. I also think they did this because they don't have a ton of labs, is my opinion. But why wouldn't you just have the labs be look like something like Try Hack Me, where it's like little boxes with descriptions instead of these huge boxes that just take up half the site? I don't get that either. But either way, really cool. I love that they're trying this because nobody else is really doing this that I've seen. I've seen a lot of defensive labs, but I'm not seeing very many people that stand up a new Elastic Stack and Elk Stack for you every single time and let you just play with the logs and stuff. I don't see that too often. So, and there's also some expansion limitations I think they're going to run into, but that's just my opinion. So we will look forward to seeing how this grows. I'm going to keep up on it. I'm going to do all the labs on here, or try to, and we'll go from there. But hopefully you guys actually check it out. Just check it out. Worst case, you check it out for a month, you don't really like it, and you waste $10. Best case, if you're not an analyst and you're trying to get into an analyst role, this is what you need to be doing, because this is what analysts do. They literally look through logs at, when they think there's an attack or they're threat hunting or something, and look for things like this. They're looking for it, right? That's what you need to be doing. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you guys enjoy it, if you think this is stupid. I don't do sponsored videos very often. This one isn't actually sponsored, meaning that I did not take anything from them, which is why I can be honest on it. I don't do sponsored videos very often, but I actually think this is a good product, and I believe that it could be really good. So that's why I did it. And so let me know what you guys think. If you guys think I'm way off the mark and this is not going to work, let me know, because maybe I am. Maybe, I haven't been an analyst in a while, so maybe it's not really there. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys.